Hello, my pleasure seekers, and welcome to today's episode with the beautiful Rachel Lavin. I am so excited to have this woman on the show. I was just saying to her when I was doing a bit of research, I was like, I am so honored to have you today because I feel like so much of our audience, male, female, unicorn, whatever gender you want to term yourself as, is going to be able to relate to this in some way, whether that's with yourself or the partner or anyone in your family. So, Rachel, who are you, my love? Welcome to today's show as well.
Well, Lucy, thank you so much for having me. And I love your accent so much.
Aw.
Well, thank you. So to introduce myself very quickly, I have been in the fitness industry for over 20 years, started as Group X, morphed into a personal trainer, a health coach, and now I'm an author and a body love educator. And what that means for me is that this is a very personal journey, a very personal story. I have struggled with my body weight my whole life and really kind of despised my body, if I'm being honest. And when I turned 40, I realized I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to be happy, but how do I get there? So I really kind of took some time for myself when I turned 40, realized that, unfortunately, I was doing a lot of this to myself, and I had to figure out how to change my mindset and change my actions and all that fun stuff. So this has been about a 10-year, 11-year journey for me. And in that time, I wrote my book, The Doughnut Diaries, which chronicles my story and how I kind of have come out the other side. And even though I have my moments or my seconds or my hours where I don't feel so great in my body, it's momentary. And instead of it being all day, every day, tears, like anger, all that, it's a moment. And I have the skills and the tools now to get through those moments without derailing all my progress, which is what I want to share with other women.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. I always say this, but there's so much to unpack. I'm so excited. So when you hit your beautiful 40-year-old self, what was the actual catalyst or breaking point where you I am better than this? Because that's 40 years worth of habit breaking. And I had 22 years and I thought that was a lot, but it's just, you don't know any different.
Right.
So how did you reset that?
Because it was so interesting. On my 40th birthday, I was a size 0, the smallest I've ever been in my body. And I was miserable. Beyond my goal weight, right? Beyond that perfect body that I thought I was trying to attain my whole life, I had finally gotten there. And when I was living in that body, I was like, this is not me. This is not who I am. This is not home. All the things you can possibly think of. And I really had a very intense moment a few days after turning 40 where there was just an awakening in me. It was like looking in that mirror from my whole life, just seeing you're not beautiful, you're not this, you're not good enough, your body is not okay, to having that realization that I was all those things was just like, I don't know if you've ever had those tears where there's no sound, no nothing, but it's just like a waterfall coming from your eyes. That's what was happening to me. And I realized that I had been putting all my energy into all the negative when I can turn that energy and turn it into all the positive. And honestly, that's what I've been doing for the past 11 years.
Wow. And so a lot of people don't talk about the actual physical aspects because people, like you said, you've been personal training, you're probably used to being around people that think it's healthy to be a certain size or a certain weight. So how did you work with that? Because that must have been another challenge that I can't even imagine how you start with that, because you're educating people on how to be healthy in your mind, but realizing that you're not healthy in your own self. So
Right.
how did you develop being first question, how did you develop being safer in your body that was no longer a size 0 is the first question, because people can see on the outside that we're looking healthier, but mentally that is a head fuck. That is an absolute head fuck. For years, I couldn't deal with it. I think.
Yeah.
So how did you maneuver that?
Well, I will be honest, it was definitely a gradual thing, because when the weight comes on, you're dealing with that emotion. You're dealing with the emotion of what are people thinking, because in my line of work, you're always told that you have to look a certain way. Now you can digest that any way you want to. And now with the confidence and the self-love I have now, if someone tried to tell me that, I would tell them where to go, right? But during that period of, I didn't feel safe in my own body. So of course, if someone else had an opinion about my body, it would wreck me. And so when the weight would come back on, it was, again, it was gradual. I was living in New York City, so I was walking everywhere. I was exercising all the time. I mean, I was just moving all the time. And this is kind of a back, going back a little bit, but I didn't learn how to cook until I was in my late 30s. So having literally shifted my diet to making homemade meals from eating processed foods most of my life, that, I think has kept my body small for a long time. So during the pandemic, when I wasn't moving, and then we moved out of New York City, my body just went into shock, and, the weight came on. And so I've been dealing with all of that. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, I hope, is that it has taken some time to really kind of appreciate that. I've had to really cope with the changes that my body is going through as I age. But I think the important thing to tell your listeners is that if I didn't have a foundation of love for myself and really kind of tuned out what other people say or think about me, I could not have done this. I really don't think I could have done this. So it really had to start with me.
Wow. And thank you for sharing all of that. That's a lot. So when you were aware, and as in your words, your weight was changing when you went through the pandemic, how did you cultivate love for yourself? Because obviously the last 40 years, you may have not had that love or that kind of honoring for who your body was. Where do you even start?
That's a great question. And the truth is, you have to start where the trauma started for you, wherever that, if it was as a child, someone in your life told you that your body was something other than you thought, or if you were in an abusive relationship and that partner was always trying to control you, talking about your body. I think it starts differently for everyone, but the end result is usually the same, where it's a traumatic event or events that begin for you, and you carry that throughout your life, and you just keep building on that and building on that and building on that trauma. Even though you think, now that I've kind of dealt with everything, I have totally dealt with everything. There was lots of tears and lots of emotions. I think that you use that as a way to protect yourself, but in reality, you're only hurting yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. That's just such a self-awareness that you have, like you mentioned around like traumatic events. Was there anything that was a real like wake up for you that you're comfortable with sharing with at all?
Of course. And again, my mom was doing the best she could with what she had at the time, but she was always hyper focused on my body, on her body. We were always on diets in the house. Diet this, diet that. So it was always just a conversation in my home growing up. So that already started it super young. And then, when you grow up with not a lot of self-esteem and things like that, and like we're talking about self-love, you enter into relationships that don't really behoove you. And so then when you're looking outside of yourself all the time for that love that you don't feel, you're opening up yourself to other, like we talked about, other people's opinions. So I would choose men who I'd have to literally fall at their feet to get their attention. And when I realized what I was doing, and it was like a lifelong pattern. Honestly, the last relationship that I had that was in my mid-30s. So I had to put the pieces together to realize, oh, I've been doing this, expecting this result, and there's no way that's ever gonna mesh. So when I keep, repeating, but when I turned 40 and I realized I've been doing all this stuff to myself, I had to get comfortable in my own skin. And for me, I chose to stay single for a while. I chose to get comfortable taking myself out on dates and getting to know who Rachel was, because there was no way I could ever be in a happy, healthy relationship, a partnership, if I didn't get there.
Nice. Oh my God. The self-love dates are the best. I love
They
that.
are, I love them. I
Oh,
still do them. Even though
good.
I've been with my current partner for almost 10 years, I still am like, bye, I'm going to spend some time by myself. And, you know, he is super supportive of that. And I love those times. You need that. You need that.
Definitely, definitely. I think I get the opposite spectrum where like I love having a lot of solo time, where sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe I should see a friend. Like they're like, hey, everyone's trying to get hold of you. I'm like, I'm just in my own love bubble, like loving myself. Which sounds really corny, but like I love my own company. So I totally get it. Like totally get it. But how do you find then your supportive partner, which is amazing, by the way, congratulations,
Thank you.
is supportive of you and your transition of loving yourself and honoring your body?
Because one of my realizations that I briefly touched on was that I was always looking outside myself, or I was always beginning a conversation. It could have been with a man or a girlfriend or whoever, but things like, I know I'm fat. I know I gained a bunch of weight since you've seen me. Things like that. I literally had to like hard stop that kind of talk. I worked on saying nice things to myself, but I realized I was literally saying those awful things out loud. And if you do that, whether you want to or not, you're giving that other person permission to kind of talk about your body or talk about you. And if that's not what you want, you can't do that. So that was when I met my current boyfriend. I didn't do that with him. I do want to say that a compliment from someone you love or from a girlfriend, I always give people compliments. That's different than saying, do I look fat in this? Or does this pink not look good on me? Those things have to come from you. But if someone says, like you, when we first started, you're like, I love that shirt. That's, for me, they're two separate entities. I think it's beautiful to compliment other people, and I think we should do more of that. But it's not you searching for love from somebody else. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I think that is such a good point around how you talk about your body. And we're conditioned as women to say like, does my ass look big in these jeans? Like that is literally what you hear in like song lyrics, you know, like seen as positive.
Mhm.
Was your partner understanding about that, or were they kind of just, how did they handle that too, you know, that transition of communication around your body?
Well, he handled it very well. And he's been very supportive of this journey that I've been on in the book and how I'm now doing this kind of work. And he's so supportive. But it is interesting that even all the stuff I'm doing and all the talk I'm doing and all the women I'm working with, he still kind of has his own stuff that he deals with. You know, he talks about his special K pinch and I don't want to eat that junk. Yeah, I mean, so we all have stuff that we have to deal with, right? And so it's interesting now that it's not my focus anymore, meaning I don't think about that stuff constantly, but to know that other people still do. And how do I support that? How do I support that? Knowing that I live with this person, I love this person, and yet they still have things that they're dealing with. So it's work. It really is. It's interesting.
It is. And you know what? You brought up a really good point there. I mean, you brought up a lot of good points, but that in particular, men have body issues too. Like we don't, it's mainly just focused on women and not discouraging any of that at all. But like, I do feel for the men because I don't feel there's much opportunity out there for men to openly talk about how they feel about their own bodies. But there's just as much pressure, if not more nowadays, on men.
I just think we all have grown up with something that we have to be. And I just think that that's not true. I think the sooner that we accept what our genetic body looks like and how do we improve on that without going to extremes. So I think that when a lot of times people hear body positivity or body, whatever, loving your body at any size, I do believe that. I do with all my heart. But I also believe in taking care of this vessel, our bodies, the best that we can. And it's not an expression. It's not wishful thinking. I mean, our bodies are meant to move. Like, why do we have hands and legs? And they're meant to carry us through this body or this life. So why not be the best, strongest, healthiest version of that? But that doesn't discount that we all do come in different shapes and sizes. I hope that made sense.
Totally makes sense. I hear you. That makes sense. So you mentioned obviously around the book a couple of times. Firstly, love the name. Think that's a great name. Where did you get the inspiration from? And what can we hear from the book if anyone wants to read it?
Well, my book was inspired by years of my story. You know, I felt like I always wanted to write a book. How I lost this chunk of weight and was able to keep it off. And then of course the weight would come back on and I was like, well, I can't do that now. So I realized that and again, I totally believe in the universe bringing you messages and putting signs, and if no roadblocks and everything just falls into place so easily. And that's how it transpired with my book. From a conversation to a friend, to a conversation with the publisher, to the next thing I knew, my book was being released. I mean, it just was so easy. And I wanted to write a book sharing my personal story, but knowing that other women were going to relate to me. And the most important message I wanted my readers to leave with was, I'm not alone. I am not alone. Yeah. And I feel like I accomplished that because I do get that feedback a lot. And it's not a self-help book, although I'm hoping it helps people. I'm not selling a diet. I'm not selling a workout plan. I'm not selling anything other than I want you to be free of feeling like you're not enough.
Which is insane. Because like so many of us, particularly in the personal health, personal growth industry, and it pisses me off, but I've also fallen for it many times. It's like, you know, I need fixing, I'm broken, I've got my shit. And like you said, everyone's got their own little thing, like everyone's got their own thing, but it also makes them who they are. Like if you look at the book you've created, the women you're helping, the partner that you've manifested or attracted into your life, whatever you want to believe, that's because of what you've gone through and who you are and what you've created from it. You know, so it's almost like a superpower rather than seen as a wound or a negative. Right. Yeah. Okay. So, with regards, obviously, the Doughnut Diaries, you said everything had flowed so easily, so quickly. And what have you found from writing a book? Like, what have you learned? Because that is a big thing to do in itself.
It's a big thing, and I am very proud of myself. But I realized that, and I don't want to take credit for this expression because I heard it from one of the self-help books that I read during my time. And I love this book, and I do keep it in my arsenal of the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I love that book. But when you can talk about your story and share your story, and there's no emotion attached to it, that means you're healed, that you have healed from that. And I love that because I was able to tell my story and it not be shameful. It wasn't emotional in the sense where I was like crying and still hurt from all those things. It was like, this shit happened to me and here you go, enjoy the story. And I felt like I couldn't have done it any better than what is out there now. And I do feel very proud of that.
Wow, that is beautiful. And that's a great book. I love that book. There's also a love book version of it as well. I don't know if you've read that bit, 4 love commandments, I think it's called.
The Mastery of Love, that one. Because there's the 5 love languages, which is another book. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
Sorry. So what apart from obviously the amazing book that you've got out at the moment, what other magic are you creating in the world to help people in this place?
Well, in my current place where I live is Greenville, South Carolina. And I have been very lucky enough to work with some women's organizations here, women who have had a very hard time and been trafficked and drugs, and now they're in recovery, and I get to go and I get to work with them and, you know, share my knowledge and share my love and share my experience, that when they finally are able to get back into the world and be on their own, that they have some positive and helpful and strong foundations to fall back on instead of falling back on what they're used to. So I love that. Working with little kids, I work with the museum here, the children's museum here, and educating little girls and little boys that it's never too early to learn how to speak nicely to your body, to yourself, and to others. So I love that. But I also have an online coaching and an online workshops, and I do all kinds of speaking engagements and virtual things, and I'm working with fitness I'm kind of spreading myself everywhere and anywhere who will listen.
Wow. So hang on. Okay, there's a lot here. So you have women that have gone through sex trafficking or sexual abuse. Now, how that is such a totally different end of the spectrum. Like, how on earth do you help someone that's been in that position to get to the basics where they don't fall into that trap again?
I mean, I work with them and you know, I'm like, talk to me, tell me your trauma, tell me where this started for you. And do you believe that you can see yourself on the other side? I mean, obviously I can't fix anyone or anything. I don't like that word fix. Sorry, that's not a great word. I do my best to guide women to believing, like we talked about, they are enough, they are safe, they are capable of making decisions about their own body. Nobody else but them are in control with their body. And all I can do is guide them through my experience and my learned techniques and skills and teaching and just being there for them.
And I think that's a huge thing that people overlook as well, you know, like if someone has gone through that situation and they're programmed to think that they can outsource their body, right? That's a whole different version of like a body image situation. So how do you find, is there anything typically that helps a woman feel safe in her body after going through something like that?
Going through the actual bad thing or going through my class?
Going through your class, like what
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was answering the question properly, because I think that, you know, being victimized is a whole nother animal. And I don't claim to be a doctor or a therapist or anything. All I can do is share my experience with you and how I work at it every single day to not fall back to my old patterns. Because I guarantee you that if I didn't do that, that would come back so fast and so easily. But I definitely tell them repeatedly, don't rush this process, because this is going to take time. It took me, you know, from my realization at 40 that I wanted a happy, healthy life to almost 52 years old, and I'm still working at it. You know, please don't give up. Please don't. And it's different when you're asking for support as opposed to asking somebody to fix you. Again, I really hope that the differentiation of getting love and support and having someone listen to you is different than, please fix me. I don't know how to do this by myself. I need you to take care of me. Those are two different things. So I think that a lot of us women don't know the difference, and it's something that we have to learn.
What would you say the difference was?
Well, for me, it was like, okay, you're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting to find true love, expecting to love yourself, expecting to find your body, and it's not working. So what do you, Rachel, need to do differently to get a different result? And that's what led me to like kind of all this self-realization and cleaning up my past and dealing with my trauma.
Did you notice that when you cleaned up the trauma in your past, that it had somewhat of a different effect on the relationships around you? We've spoken about obviously your dating, but what about like friendships and family? Because there's a whole new Rachel coming out, right? That you don't know and that they don't know, which is probably more than likely your authentic self. How did you find that?
It's interesting that you asked me that, because I even in my book, like, apology to friends that I still have from then to now. I'm like, thank you so much. And I apologize that I was a really shitty friend. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for allowing me to evolve. And, you're getting a much better friend now, because it's true. When you're worried so much about yourself, you really have no space for other people. And it's not cute, and it's not great, because you're not a good friend. You're not a good partner. You're not a good daughter, or what. You're not great when you're just consumed with, how do I be this? How do I get there? How do I get smaller? How do I not lose? I mean, when you're always thinking about yourself, there's no room for you to think about other people, and you're not a good friend.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you shared that. Yeah, I totally get it. I had situations where I was never present. I don't know about you, but I was never present. I'm constantly thinking like, what have I put in my mouth? Or when can I go make myself sick? Or how many times can I go to the gym today? Like no presence at all. Like, surprised how I managed to function over that time period. It's almost like a kind of congratulations in a way that it was, you survived and you created what you did before, and then now knowing where you are now and creating what you're making now. Because presence is just, I don't think people realize the importance of presence until they then get it, or then
Right.
feel it themselves.
I agree 100% for sure.
And did you find some friends actually, I don't know, found it quite challenging seeing you as the actual Rachel, like the more present woman that you wanted to be? Or were they a lot more just like, this is great, just love you for who you are?
I would say it was more the latter. I mean, I'm very lucky to have some amazing women in my life. And, my very best friends, there's 3 women that just have been with me for many years, and we've been friends for so long. We've all gone through our evolution. So it is special to be able to kind of go through that with another woman, and just, it only strengthens your bond with them. It really does. I mean, were there people that I had to let go of? Yeah. Yeah. And people who had no interest in getting to know the new me, for sure. Absolutely. But I couldn't let that stop me. I can't sit there and apologize for the rest of my life. I effed up. I know I wasn't a good friend. Here's what I can do now. But some people, they see you one way, or they have one experience of you, and they just can't change that in their own mind.
And that's their stuff, it's not yours. So
Right.
yeah. And so for you, now that you're at the age of 52, and I don't even like age is whatever, who cares, but where do you see your life flourishing now with where you're at?
I definitely want to just steam ahead with this work. I feel so in my purpose, if that's an expression. Like, I've always felt like being in the fitness industry was my way of contributing, my way of helping. But this is like nothing I've ever felt before. And even if I just help 2 people, I'm fine with that. But having conversations with amazing women like you who have gone through this stuff too, it just makes our message bigger and louder. And women who may not have heard it, or heard about me, or heard about you because of podcasting and speaking and virtual things, are finally able to. And I am just so grateful for that.
Yeah, me too. And thank you. I appreciate that. And so for women that are listening right now and they're like, oh my gosh, I just thought I'd have to put up with this forever, right? Like they've got their own families, they feel they've moved on, but they haven't. Where would you say is a good place for them to start with just getting out of this cycle?
I have found, because this is so deep seated for so many of us, that some of us don't even think that there's anything going on. It's like, I don't eat this, I only eat that, and I'm perfectly happy this way. it's not even a thought that this is a life suck and I'm really not happy. So I think that to maybe sit with yourself and sit with your thoughts and think about, are you really happy? Is there something regarding your diet or your body that you would like to address? And if the answer is yes, then for me, I think a beautiful, simple place to start is saying something nice to yourself every day. And it's okay that you're not going to believe it right away. It's okay. That's normal. It's normal. You've been saying awful, hateful things to yourself for, 20, 30 years. Say something nice. And even if you have to write it on a post-it and stick it right on your fridge or your bathroom mirror and repeat it. And I find that thinking it is fine, but actually saying it out loud, it gives it power, it gives it momentum. And then one day you're going to say it and you're going to be like, yeah, I am beautiful. Yes, my legs are perfect, or whatever it is that you're telling yourself. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think for me, I would put post-it notes on my mirror at the time and be like, I'd kind of get used to it being there, and then either I've absorbed it or there's a resistance around it. And one thing I've learned that helped me is if I put it in like a positive but with a negative like spin, so it'd be like, I'm not safe in my body, and that would kind of be like an adjustment to me
Oh,
feeling safe in my body. Because I would find if I put something like as extreme in my mind, in my experience anyway, of like, I'm so safe in my body, I'm beautiful, my brain would be like, no, like what the fuck, like
okay.
feel that. So I'd almost do like this trick like thing, which I know sounds quite complicated, but it would work for me in understanding it. And then which is why I teach breath work. I think you have to absorb it in your body as well. Otherwise, I mean, it's 20% mindset, 80% somatic work in your body. So I love that you really reiterate having that messaging and working with that messaging, because I think you've got to find your own mantras that work for you as well. Um,
Yes.
so yeah. So amazing. And so if anyone wants to work with you or they're loving your messages, where can they find you?
Please find me, Rachel Lavin Wellness, all over social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook. And also my website is Rachel Lavin Wellness. You can find my book via my website, or you can just go straight to Amazon, and it's the Doughnut Diaries.
Okay, amazing. Well, I'll share everything in the show notes as well for anyone that's listening that wants to have a little gander and understand a bit more about Rachel. And we have got a quick three question fire round, which is new to the show. So I
Okay.
want to ask you, that's it, have a sip of water. What I want to ask you is, what is one thing that you want to brag about? Because I think as women, we don't brag enough about things and we see it as a negative, but we are doing amazing things in this world. It doesn't have to be like saving the world, just being who you are. So what is your brag that you want to share?
My brag is that I'm fun to be around, and I just kind of feel like I can bring women together that may not have like connected, and create a group of women that is just fun and different. And I do feel like that's one of my superpowers.
I love that. Oh, so good. So good. And what are you grateful for? What's your gratitude today?
Ugh, I'm grateful for today. I'm grateful I woke up. I'm grateful that I have a beautiful home and a beautiful love. And I'm just grateful for everything. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's super true.
Good point. We wake up in the morning and we just kind of keep going with our to-do list. We don't think about that. Fuck, I've made it today. The heart's still ticking. The legs are
Right?
moving. And what is one of your desires, your current desires?
Oh man, that I get to do this for the rest of my life. I get to change lives.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It's so magical. So wow. Okay. Wow, my love. Thank you so much for joining today. I really, really, really appreciate it. And yeah, for anyone that wants to follow Rachel, I will share everything in the show notes. And for anyone that feels affected or wants to share anything, please reach out to myself or Rachel. And just remember, you're not alone. Like, habits and patterns with food and bodies is just such a common behavior to be in, and you're never alone. So thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you soon. Yeah.